I have to land on a moving train, and I really want to do something wow, for the audience. I really want the people to say, "What the heck?"
Welcome to Profoundly Pointless. In this episode, we're going to go behind the scenes of some of movies' most intense stunts. Our guest is stunt helicopter pilot Fred North. Thank you for joining us. Like and subscribe if you get a chance. Was the goal always to be a stunt pilot, or were you going to be a regular pilot and this is just kind of what happened?
I didn't know I wanted to be a stunt pilot because I didn't know even the position was existing. So I just started to be a helicopter pilot. I knew I wanted to do what we call utility flying, which means firefighting, rescue, more the flying aspect of it and not like go from A to B. That I knew, but I didn't know where, life was going to take me.
So, did this really even exist when you started out, or did you kind of pave a path for this?
It was existing in America, but at the time I was in France. In France, it did not exist. So I had to kind of create the job for Europe. In the US, there was maybe 10 guys doing it worldwide. That's it. So it's such a niche job.
Essentially, like what makes you good at it?
You need to have a very, very good awareness of the surrounding, the moving surrounding, because when we fly super low and there's power lines, there is wall, there is explosion, there's cars, you need to have, in a fraction of a second, you need to photograph everything moving, and if you can go between them, you can go next to them. So you need to have a very comfortable sense of space, and that's something you have or you don't. Now, of course, you can get better and better, but you need to have a base. Some people have no sense of that. So you need that. And then the second is you need to connect with your machine. So you need to be one with the helicopter. There is not it's not you operating the machine. You are the machine, which means, I don't know if if you ski, but
Yeah.
snow ski. Okay, so if you ski and you go downhill, and sometimes you lose control a little bit because the snow is not good or whatever it is, but you're losing control. The ski are taking you down, not you, and you can very easily identify that when shoot, like you're losing control and you're going down. The ski is taking you. So in a helicopter is the same. You have to be in control. The machine cannot take you somewhere. You cannot allow this to happen. So you need to be one. And for me, the only way to be one with the machine is to be an expert in one type, which is what I'm doing. I'm expert in the one you can see on Instagram 99% of the time. It's an Airbus H125. It's a machine that is plenty technical reason why. And to me, to connect with them, I often fly barefoot. I remove my shoes and my socks because I feel the machine with my hands and my feet. And I really feel the helicopter way more when I'm barefoot. If you drive your car without shoes, you're going to see what I'm talking about. You're going to
I can see that,
so
right?
sensitive, and you basically you control the machine by pressure point, not movements. So if you have a big pair of shoes, you don't feel anything as a pressure point. You have to move physically something to react. But if you want to fly, like a feather, you need pressure point. So that's basically, I think, what you have to be good at.
They're that sensitive.
They're very sensitive. Yeah. In fact, if you think you turn, it's turning without any moving. If you fly with me and I'm going to show you the control, you're not going to see it moving. We're going to go 90 degrees to the left.
I guess the only thing I could possibly in my life compare to is like skiing and mountain biking, in which mountain biking, like, no, you control it.
Yeah.
And if you want to go left, well, you think about going left.
It's the same. It's the same principle for any machine. For me, it's exactly the same for mountain biking. Because the guy doing jerky move is going to fall. You really have to, it's pressure point. To me, it applies to any kind of machine going fast somewhere, or, you have to control your bike. You have to be one with your bike. You have to be one with a motorcycle. You have to be one with anything you do. It's the same for the helicopter.
And I think that anybody can kind of relate to that in the sense that, like, oh, if you're walking or something like that, you take your shoes off. You do know where you are a lot more.
Right. Yeah, if you do yoga or something, you take your shoes off, you connect more. I mean, it's basic. So because of 99.9% of the pilots learn with their shoes, it's not always easy for them to switch. For me, it was just because one day it was so hot, it was warm as hell, and I removed my shoes because I was in the Sahara Desert, and I removed my shoes and said, whoa. And then since that day, I don't always take it off, but if it's a complicated sequence and I'm not in Alaska or somewhere, then my shoes is gone.
So if you're looking at like the precision aspect of it, okay, you've got to be within 6 inches of this spot, a foot, like 10 feet. Like how close are you gonna, like, okay, you got an A if you're within X amount of space of where you're supposed to be.
Most of the time, it's going to be to the foot, because if you look at my frame right now, okay, if I'm a foot off, okay, so it's the same for me in the helicopter. Most of the time they have the camera, and that's what they want to see, what's behind me. So if I'm going this way, then the camera is to follow, and then my background change. So it's usually to the foot. I have to be very precise. And I'm always telling everybody who's working with us in our team, I said, you have to be consistent when you duplicate again and again and again a flight movement. It has to be to the foot or half a foot. Basically, you have to be perfectly, aligned with whatever they want. And most of the time what we do, I'm going behind the camera on the ground and I look what they're going to see. And I'm trying to see, what will be the limits, like a visual cues, like a building, like a rooftop or something. And then when I'm coming in with a helicopter, I'm trying to stay within those reference cues that I don't see anymore because I'm sitting on the filmed helicopter. But then we have a ground pilot, what we call ground pilot coordinator. They're very experienced pilot. They're on the ground with radios. They're next to the director and he's listening to what he says, and then he can see the frame because he can see the video. And then he can see if I'm like 10 feet off, he say, Fred, move 1 click. So we have a little code. It's 1 click, 2 clicks, 3 clicks. It just means it's a little bit, You can say 2 feet to the right, but it doesn't mean 2 feet. It means a little bit, So that's how we do it.
I'm always fascinated by logistics, so this may be a slight diversion necessarily, but like, how do you get the FAA to approve this? Like, is that because if I was just sitting at my desk at the FAA and like, you're going to do what?
Well, first of all, we all have an FAA office that we are relaying to. So like I'm in LA, so my helicopter is at Long Beach Airport. So then there's an FAA office there. So since 20 years that I've been in America, I've been relaying with LAX, so Los Angeles Airport, FAA office, and then Long Beach. Both of them know me very well. So we know each other. That's the first thing, okay? And the way we're doing things with them, their job is to protect the public. My job is to protect the public and also to do the shoot. FAA doesn't really care about the shoot. Their job is to protect the public. So when I submit a permit, let's say downtown LA, I have to fly between the street, between the buildings in the street at 5 feet of the ground. Then I'm going to submit a permit. They're going to show how I'm going to protect the public, which means apartment buildings. If those guys too close, we have to empty the building. If the people wants to stay, they can, but they have to approve it. So we go one by one to each apartment and say, we're suggesting you go to a hotel. We're paying for your hotel room. Would you want to go to on the weekend? Because usually we do that on weekends. If people say, no, I don't want to go anywhere, we say, okay, we would love you you don't stay on the balcony. You go in the back room. But if you want to be on the balcony, it's up to you. But in that case, you become participants, which means now they're taking the risk. So FAA basically is asking us to do our due diligence to protect the public. So we're trying to always find a place that we don't have apartments, more like a corporate kind of area, industrial.
Yeah.
Because the offices are
sense.
closed on weekends. So we will go to Century City in LA and find a place where there's more businesses, because on Sunday morning, they're not there. And if there is like a coffee shop, let's say, then we'll go to the coffee shop and we'll say, how much you make Sunday from 8 a.m. to noon? The guy says 6,000. Here, 6,000, close the door. So this is the way we do it. And then when we submit the permit like that to the FAA and we explain where we enter, where we exit, how we're going to do all that stuff, they usually, approve the permit, and each pilot that doing film work has what we call a motion picture movie manual. So it's basically 30 pages and explaining how you are conducting your operation, the filming part, everything, and how you protect the public and the crew. And then that movie manual is valid for 2 years, and your FAA office is the one to renew it. So they're putting basically the liability on the pilot and the responsibility on the pilot. So if you do your job right, they're going to renew it every 2 years. But if you're not, behaving and you are reckless or something, then they're not going to give it to you, and then you cannot apply for a filming permit.
So on an average thing, right? Like, and I know this, obviously there's like 50,000 different factors, but it's going to cost a movie production, whatever, like how much to just do this? And
I mean, it depends. If we shoot downtown LA, like when I did the movie San Andreas, if you remember that,
yeah.
Brad Payton was the director, and we blocked 11 blocks on downtown LA for half a day on a Sunday, and it was about $1 million to do that. I'm not talking about how much for production to do the shoot. I'm talking our part. Blocking, we had like 200 people blocking all the access. So you need to have a person on each exit and entrance from any buildings, because you can't let people going outside while we're flying. So the way we do it is they all have, some sort of clothes that we can see, but they have little flags, red and green. When I'm on a hover, I can see, if I see all the little flags green, I know I'm ready to go. If I see there's one red, I'm calling the ground and say, hey, there's one guy says red, what is going on? And then they say, well, there's a guy that doesn't want to go away. Then we try to speak with him, and then we have the police that is there. LAPD is there, police, there's a lot of agencies involved. The city people is there. So there could be 400 people, managing that airspace. So, it's a lot to do. So it costs a lot of money, but at the end you have an amazing action sequence.
Yeah, I've got some of your kind of work queued up. I'll get to that in a little bit. I was like, holy crap. Like, that's impressive. Yeah. Are you ready for some kind of harder listener submitted questions?
Sure.
Hardest stunt that you've ever done? What one would you say is like, ooh, that was the...
People don't call me, unfortunately, for boring stuff. So it's always a little bit of a challenge, okay? Because people call me to do, advanced and challenging. So I'm known for that. So I would say, first of all, the Fast and Furious movie, low and dirty car chase, that's always pretty exposed, the Fast and Furious. I've done all of them since number 4, and we're prepping number 11, to give you an idea. So it's a family, it became a family thing. But the stunt people and us on the RL team, we're like one family, like we love each other, we know each other. So it's always tricky. But the last 2 more difficult, stunt I had to do. There's one that I'm explaining in my book, Flying Sideways, that we're going to start shipping like mid-September, end of September, just, for people to know. And I'm explaining, so on the last Extraction 2 movie that was released on Netflix, like 2 months ago, I have to land on a moving train to drop off 5 guys. And the complication of that sequence, originally when I told the director we can do that, we were supposed to shoot it in Australia because Chris Hemsworth, our lead actor living there, he wanted to do it there, but it was during COVID. And when we were supposed to do it there was a rail track, open, no trees, nothing. So I had plenty of room to do the approach, land on a moving train and bail. But then COVID happened, and then they asked us to do it in Europe. And we did it in Czech Republic, and the problem there were trees. So long story short, we only had 28 seconds free of trees to do the gag. So now I told him, we can do it, and now it's hard for me to tell them, well, it's going to be tricky because now you only give me 28 seconds. Well, they would have told me, hey, you should have told us you need XYZ, like 45 seconds. I said, I even didn't think to let you guys know because there was not even a question.
Right.
Anyway,
yeah.
At that point, the ship was sailed and we're already in it. So we have to do that stunt. It's complex to land a helicopter with one skid on the train, and five guys going out, because it's about 1,000 pounds weight transfer. So if you put one skid, the helicopter is already, not really balanced. But when the guys get out, you have basically in 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 1,000 pounds off. So the helicopter can tip over. You have to control the balance, and then at the same time, you're 60 miles an hour on a moving train, and you have only 28 seconds. So we had to. So that was a difficult, sequence. So if you watch the movie, then you're gonna see what I'm talking about. It's very short on the movie, but you're gonna see exactly what we're doing. So to prep that one, so in the book, I'm really explaining all the details, what went through my mind, how we did it, how it was safe, and the whole thing that went through my mind. So if anybody is interested, it's in the book. So that was the Extraction 2. If the viewers want to look, it was, it's also a fun movie. I mean, it's crazy action, and there's other crazy stuff with helicopters in there. But then I've done another one, and I cannot talk too much about it because the movie hasn't been released yet. But in Beverly Hills Cops 4 with Eddie Murphy, and the movie is not out yet, we've done a crazy helicopter sequence that was one of the most difficult in my career, and it was extremely challenging, like crazy cars being inches from me. So I cannot say too much. But when the movie is coming out, if you want to do another podcast, then I will be more than happy to explain, because it was mind-blowing crazy shit. So, and the movie is funny because, of course, Eddie.
Yeah, he's funny.
He's funny.
How, like, if you were to put a number on it, right? Like, how often, 5%, 10%, 20%, whatever. Like, how often do you say, like, we can't do that?
In fact, it's very rare, because usually when they suggest for me to do something, I'm more the one to suggest to do something crazy than them, because they don't know what we can do and we cannot do. So often they're more conservative in the writing, and I'm more like, well, we can fly inside a building with a helicopter, and we can fly inside a building. We can. There's a lot of things to do to make that happen in a structure, but we can. And then from there they're trying to massage the storyline. So professional, most of the movie we do are big budget, and people are amazing. They're the top of the line. They know what they're doing. So when you speak with the director and he's suggesting something, immediately if you say, that's going to be tricky to do, but if you want, we can do it that way. Okay, great. And then people catch up on it. So it's never like, no, you guys crazy, because it's not that kind of relationship.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would have like no idea what you were capable of doing.
For the train, for example, the director didn't ask me to land on it. He asked me, can you go above the train and can you hoist or rappelling 5 guys on the train but moving? Can you do that? I say, sure, but that's boring. I said, people, that's boring stuff. Why we don't land on the damn train? Can you do that? I said, I think so. I never done it, but I think so. And then from there, he decided to write the whole story, the third act on it, So it's more that kind of relationship where I want to be supportive to the movie, and I really want to do something wow, for the audience. I really want the people to say, what the heck, and I want to create inspiration. I want to create, and I don't want to sound arrogant when I say that, because it's not my, I really want people to say, oh, we can do this. I mean, this is insane. And then maybe they want to be a helicopter pilot. Maybe they're going to want to be, I don't know. It's just suggesting the young guys out there, yes, we can do that. There's a way to do a lot of stupid stuff in life if you do it in a smart way. And I'm not saying I'm smart, but with the team, we're trying to do it as smart as possible.
This is one that I'll just straight up ask it to you, right? Like, how do you feel about drones and CGI? Like, is that going to replace this? So
often people ask the question, and in fact, it's two different things. So let's start with the drone. So drones is basically a new filming platform that happened, 7-8 years ago. And when that came in to the picture, of course, people say, that's it. We're going to use drones, helicopter, dawn, and blah, 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 blah. And me personally, I know exactly what a drone can do and cannot do. And if you think about it for a second, operating a drone with a camera system at low level between obstacle and stuff is way more difficult than people think it is. Because to be remotely detached from the camera, okay, and from the flying part, you're on the ground and that thing is some level than you or higher. Now there's no connection between those two pieces. And if you look at every other filming tool we have in Hollywood, okay, we have camera car. The camera is directly attached on the car on a little crane, but it's attached. The cameraman has the joystick. He can operate the camera that is in the car, so he's moving with the camera. Okay, so he can make his decision, creative decision, on the go. He's with the camera. Okay, the dolly grip is pushing his dolly. The camera is there. The crane operator, the camera is on the crane, so it's always a connection. They're direct connect. Helicopter flying directly with the camera. Steadicam, the guy is holding the camera. So 99.9% of the camera system in the filming business are the cameramen are connected and pilot directly with the camera. Drone, no. That changed everything. Okay, so now drones will lack in spatial orientation. Okay, the guy is detached from it. You ask the guy to go around a building. How does he know he can go around the building? Just looking at the monitor where the drone goes? It doesn't work that way. You go straight, but now you need to make a right. How do you see that it's clear to the right? When do you know? So if you wait to clear the wall that is on your right to make to turn, you wait too far. Then the shot is going to be boring, or you have to go slowly now. Because when you make the turn, what happens if there's a pole? And then you turn and boom, you hit the pole. So it's not as simple than people think. So then
that makes sense.
There's also drone lack of depth of field. It's very hard for them to know, because you're looking into the monitor, which is flat. There is no depth. So it's very hard for a drone pilot to know, how far he is on a moving, he's moving. Also, you have to understand that most of them only have like 8 to 12 minutes battery range. So they don't have a lot of time really to rehearse and do it. They have to do one or twice and then land, change the battery, do one or twice, land and do the battery, etc., etc. So it's not as easy than people think. So to me, it's a complete different animal than a camera helicopter, 1,000 horsepower, cameraman and pilot on board. We're flying the camera. I'm becoming the camera. The helicopter disappear, So you have to see the differences. I will say the overlap between the two is maybe 10%. 10% the drone I can do. 10%, what the helicopter does, they can do.
I mean, it kind of sounds like in the sense of I don't remember who the director of that movie was, but it was the most recent Mad Max movie where they did it all without any of that stuff. And there was just a certain amount of whatever words you want, rawness or realness to it that was oh, it brought you into it so much more.
Exactly. Yeah, so much more. And to me, you want to avoid the effects. It's the same with me in the helicopter. I want to be careful the way I shot something. It has to be organic because, yes, you don't want for the audience to think, oh, that was a helicopter shot. Because this has nothing to do with the story. So you always have to be very careful the way you are flying because you don't want to cut that connection with the with whatever you're filming. As a film pilot, that's your job. And as a drone operator, it's the same. And directors that do really big movies or have a good sense, they know. And they're going to say, Fred, we're going to use you for this and we're going to use this, with a drone.
And the CGI part, do you think the CGI could replace it?
So CGI, as it says, is computer graphic images. So what does it mean? It means you're building from scratch fake background. Okay? So it's like a cartoon, or you're shooting something real, and in the back, let's say there's a bridge across the ocean. That bridge doesn't exist, so they're going to CG the bridge. What happened with CG is, if it's not in your face, you can live with it for a few seconds. But if it's in your face, now people are not stupid. They can tell it's not, true, real. So again, you don't want anything that disconnects you from the story. So to me, bad CG, people say, what the heck is that? You don't even, I don't know if you remember the movie A-Team, the last one that was maybe 10 years old. And there was a tank that's falling out of the sky from a plane. And that tank was so badly made, like so poorly made. The CG of that tank, it was like horrible. And to me, you can destroy the sequence because it's so bad that it's like, looks like it's a cartoon. And that's bad CG. So in the helicopter world, CG is giving us more work because we have to shoot those plates. What we call plates is basically we have to shoot the background that they're going to put stuff in it. So let's say, okay, let's say the last Top Gun movie. Okay, yeah, there's all those jets flying and everything. Each time there's a jet flying, each time you see a window off to the side, let's say you're filming the actor, he's talking, but behind him there's a window. Do you think they're really filming what's going on behind that window? No. They're filming the guy, and they put a green piece of screen on the window, and then we shoot that part separately, no planes. Oh. And then they take any piece they like, and they're going to put it in the window. That's CG. So we do a lot of work like that, a lot. I will say you represent 40% of what we do.
To me, it sounds like you're shooting the foundation for them to kind of put things on.
Correct. And they need the reality, the true image, so they can put some fake in it. But he cannot build a fake. To give you an example, like if you take a Fast and Furious movie, the number 7 or 8, I think the 8, there was a submarine going through the ice, and we shot that in Iceland. There was no submarine, of course. So the submarine is CG. What we shot the ice, and we tried to find a little crack in the ice. We shot that so they can just use that crack and use that to crack to burst the submarine. So then the only thing that was fake was a submarine. You can even push it more than that. You can go shoot a submarine that is on the water. You shoot it the same way you're going to shoot it if it was in the ice. We shoot the ice part, we shoot the submarine part, and then they put the two together. That's CG, for example.
That's crazy.
That's how we do it for a lot of... in Top Gun, 2 jets flying above each other. We shoot one, then we shoot this one, and then they put it together.
For this, like, what's kind of happening? Walk me through this a little bit.
So this is the movie Gran Turismo that has been released in theater last night, and I want to see it last night because I love to see the movies, in the theater. I don't mind watching on TV, but I think we need to go to the theater to support and also watch that like a big event. So here, basically in the story, you have those young pilots, driver, that are racing, and in the helicopter there's like an engineer and an instructor that is giving guidance to those guys. So they wanted me to be super close to the cars and going with them. So here I have to be very careful. So you see the blades are pretty close to the cars in the turn. So I have to be very careful for the blades to not, of course, touch one of the car. And you have to match your speed. And also there's a lot of obstacle. There's the seats. There is, you can see, but there's bridges, overpass. So it was tricky to do. You need to have the same speed on the car. And you have to understand that helicopter is 2.5 tons. So you have to manage the weight and the momentum. And I'm sitting on the front left from what you can see here. So I'm on the opposite side of the car. We make it a bit more difficult because the car on the left side of the helicopter, and I'm sitting on the right. So it's not always easy. So I need to keep an angle so I can have a visual on the car. And, it takes a little bit to do that safely, of course. But that's what's happening here.
I would think that it's really hard to match that speed.
Yeah, because you don't have a lot of time. Because what you can't see to the right, there's overpasses. And you have to dive down to get to the level of the car. So you can't really match the speed and then get the turn. You have to kind of be, because also the cars change speed all the time. So
yeah,
in fact, most of the time I'm asking the stunt drivers when they drive those cars, be consistent with your speed. Because if they go super fast and they hit the brake and they make the turn, it's impossible for me to manage that speed because I'm 2.5 tons. If I slow down, I have to flare. And then when I flare, I'm losing sight of what is in front of me because the nose goes
That
up.
makes sense.
So I'm always asking them to help me with the speed, and that's what those guys do, of course. They're most of the time, they're friends, the stunt drivers, and we help each other.
This one,
This one, it's
Oh man.
yeah. So a lot of people were wondering how we did this because it's not easy to be in the turbulence of the other one. But there's a technique here you can see. So you see the propellers and all that wind come towards me. But if you go back to the beginning of the video, my blades that are above us are above the propeller of the plane. That's how you stay off turbulence. The helicopter gets some, but that doesn't matter. As long as the blades don't get the turbulence, it's irrelevant.
Oh, so you have to be just now you're above the high point of his wing
Of
or the
his
thing in the
propeller.
back, or
It's
you're just
also the
above the
wings.
propeller.
It's the tip of the wing will create a vortex, and the propellers will blow a lot of wind towards me. So as long as the blades are my blades that are above me right now, my rotor system is above the propeller and above the wings, then there is no factor for the helicopter because my rotor system is like a wing in a sense. So if that's getting clean air, there is no turbulence. If the helicopter get, turbulence, it's going to shake a little bit, but there's no problem with that. It's like if I'm pushing you a little bit, you know.
Yeah, it's the thing that I would think of in my mind. It's like somebody pushing my upper body while I'm running. Well, as long as you don't hit my legs, I'm fine.
Exactly. So kind of the same here. So we only like 5 feet from the plane because it's shot with an iPhone, by the way, my cell phone. So it's pretty wide.
You're only like 5 feet behind the plane with shooting that with an iPhone.
I'm not sure. A friend of mine is shooting behind it.
So how does I would not have thought that a helicopter could take off like that.
So in fact, helicopters are like a pendulum. Okay, there's one rotor system, so it's a pendulum. It's a big difference between helicopter and drones. Drones are multi-rotors, so they all go in opposition to each other. This is why it's hard for them to turn, because they're all going in opposition with each other. Us, we have one axe, so it's very easy it's a pendulum effect. Okay, so here, it's the same principle. So it's taking off is like a pendulum. So as long as the forces pull you in one direction, you can be almost any direction. So here, the only way to be really straight down is to have to going super fast in one direction. The helicopter will just follow the rotor system. So as long as you go fast, you're not going to fall. But you need the traction. It's like a gigantic propeller going, down. As long as it's pulling you forward, no problem. You need to know what you're doing so you don't touch the ground. But if you look very carefully the way we do this, you can see us going up a little bit. We're not doing it from the, we're doing it and then we're going up so it's clear for the blades on the ground.
So that's pretty much all the questions that we have. Do you think we left anything out? Did we miss anything? What's kind of coming up for you? I know you got a big book coming out.
Yeah. So, my book Flying Sideways was, first of all, to find the title was not a quiet river because it's, when it's there, it's easy to say Flying Sideways. And, it took for 8-9 months, what title? It's so cheesy, cliche, So, and then one of my neighbor, she said, what you do best? I say, I don't know, Flying Sideways. That's it. And that's how that thing came in, So it's basically, it's a memoir. So it's, I've done some crazy, I don't know if you can say that shit, right? In my life. And the memoir is basically, starting with extraction, right? And to explain to people how I feel in my heart when I put myself in those positions, like when I'm ready to land on the train, is like, what the heck is wrong with me? Why I'm why, and so anyways, all that stuff that go to my mind. And at the end, again, a piece of extraction again to close that chapter. And in between, you're going to see from Africa to Hollywood. How do you go from born and raised in Africa with, parents as a teacher, as a French person, don't speak English, no visa, nothing, and in Hollywood and do all the big movies. So how did this happen? And one of the reasons we wrote the book is because on my social media, there's so many young kids out there asking me, how can we be a film pilot? How can we do this? How can we do that? And I'm always taking the time to respond to them. But then we thought with my wife, that, wrote the book with me, Peggy North, lucky for me that she did wrote it, because as a pilot, forget the writing. Uh, but it's basically, explaining to those guys, it's not, there's not like a menu, like you can, to succeed in life and go to what you want to do. It's not A, B, C, D, like something you line up. It's what the way you are going through your life with the discipline and the commitment, the hardworking. But all those things are just words. But what I mean is, quickly in the book I explain it. But I did an Army, U.S. Air Force test to be a jet fighter pilot, because I have no clue when I was 18, and I did all the testing and everything. And at the end, the guy that was in charge of making the decision, he was like a general. He said, you're not gonna pass, because you'll be a terrible pilot. You'll be absolutely so bad at it that we're not gonna take a chance with you. Out. I was 18, so it was a shock to me. I was really depressed for a few weeks, but then I figured, who's that guy to tell me what I'm good at? Why, why should I, trust him? So that didn't stop me. That's what I mean. The book is basically to explain that as long as you have the will, and you have the passion, and you do what you think is right for you, then you're going to be successful, and you're going to do what you want to do. So that's what the book is kind of about.